Welcome, everybody. So if you guys are there, once again, drop where you guys are watching from tonight. And if you are out there, please share the show. Facebook has been weird about how everything is with sharing and everything else now. So try to share the show if you guys can. I tried to do it earlier, but it's really can't work until you go live now. So it's really odd. But welcome to our second episode of the third season, but episode 52 of the Gaining Fast on Memphis podcast, place where we connect melodies and memories with both fans, artists, and some of the most interesting people in and around the music community or just the world, really. I'm your host, Aaron Shriver. Tonight, we're presented by our good friends, Arlo Revolution, cinematic wedding films, music videos, and promos. You can find them at arlorevolution.com. Then our on-screen sponsors tonight are Around the Higher Wire by Joel and Corey Oliphant and the Original Church Choir are back once again. But wait, if you guys are looking for ways to support the show, definitely check out our heart and pride of the show is our Patreon. So tiers start at just $1, and our current goal is now set at 100 Patreons. We're about 28 people away from that. And so we're definitely looking for that. We're still got 2 on-screen sponsors available. If you guys are looking, you can get that through Patreon, as well as yearly and annual memberships, which is cool. So if you guys are over there and want to jump on the yearly membership, you get a free month. So it's like you pay for 11, get one free. So why not, right? But let's see. Going this. I think we're good. What's up, Rich? So yeah, we got some people coming in. That's good. Just come on in if you guys can. If you guys didn't miss it first, if you guys can share, like the post, so we can get it out there. It is crazy now the way Facebook has everything and the way they do everything. So it's fun. Always learning with the times. But let's see. I'm jumping the gun here. But yeah, our Patreon, we were just talking about Patreon. This month, we're going to be giving away at the end, actually next week, the show will be another autographed Jeremy Spillman book, another Chief gift card, as well as a show t-shirt. So definitely some good stuff for this month. Check it out over our show Patreon. And yeah, I think we're good. But I'm excited because this show is going to be a fun one tonight, guys. I want to do something, I told you before, I want to do something different this season. And was every month I want to do kind of more of a themed show. And I was looking for something cool to do for before October. Of course, October I have to do something ghost related eventually. But I wanted to do something that I've been struggling with a lot, and ADHD. And I see it a lot, especially in the community. And about 3-4 months ago, maybe a little longer ago, I don't know, my wife got me hooked on this little app called TikTok, which, yeah, I mean, it was fun. But one of the first videos I ever saw was by our guest tonight. And it was actually a really cool video. It just made me think to myself about things that I was dealing with daily. And I'm like, well, if I'm dealing with this stuff, and this video is definitely connecting with me, others would like it. Well, of course they do. He has 100,000 followers now. And he's grown this amazing TikTok page. And every single video he puts out there is this unique, quirky, but it's truth. And I love it because he really is helping people. And I don't know if he really knows it yet or not, but a lot of us are hanging on to a lot of his words. And then he met this other lady, Catie, and he's going to bring her on tonight too as a special guest because I started watching her videos a few days ago. Amazing stuff. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring Erik on. What's up, buddy?
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty well. It's my day off, and it's still light out, and I'm in California, and there's far less smoke than there has been recently, and so it's kind of like it's a special day. Feels nice.
I was gonna say, are you real close to those fires, or it's been pretty crazy down there?
Yeah, well, I'm in Northern California, and so it's sort of all flowing downwards and into eastward and everything. So like a lot of people in like even like Colorado and whatnot in the mountains, it's getting stuck in the mountains and stuff. So yeah, anywhere within like a 200-mile radius of like it's just all over. But it's better than it has been. It's definitely clearing up a bit. But there's still sort of ash in the air. I don't know if you watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, but like every time the Fire Nation attacks, the air like starts to rain with like little ash particles, and it kind of looks like that sometimes. But
I gotta check that
anyways,
out,
that was
man.
the whole thing about this smoke.
So welcome to the show. So like I was telling everybody, I first kind of got introduced to you. This is really, I mean, we talked a little bit on the phone earlier today, but that's kind of our first interaction we've had. But you just kind of, I don't know if you're another guy just really being vocal, because a lot of times guys, I mean, we don't are vocal. I mean, we think we shouldn't be. And I really like to see other guys speaking up. And so maybe I connected on that route with you. But for yourself, first off, when did you really first start thinking something was off or something was different for yourself?
Well, like knowing what I know now, looking back, I can see the beginnings of it really early, really early. I remember I was probably in second grade, I think. We had this writing assignment that was penmanship practice, and we had to just write like 20 words, like 3 times to practice our handwriting. And I couldn't sit through it. Like I couldn't sit through it. I like every time I sat down, I remember I kept thinking I had to go to the bathroom. I would sit down and I would start writing, and I would just go, oh my, I have to go to the bathroom. And so I would go and come back, and I would sit down, and immediately, like, I thought I had to go to the bathroom again. I mean, at the time I genuinely did, but now looking back, it was just my brain frantically trying to get out of this situation and seek new stimulus, you know, to satisfy my ADHD stimulus craving brain. So looking back, like that early on, and then when I started seeking, I guess, a diagnosis, was early high school. I formally got diagnosed my sophomore year in high school, but when I first started noticing, like, oh, this is a thing, was when I noticed that I started to learn interesting things in the classes that I was taking, and I started being really interested in learning the things that I was being taught. And so I started wanting to study and wanting to do, you know, school stuff and wanting to join clubs, but I noticed that I couldn't, even though I wanted to do the reading about this cool thing and all that, you know, I couldn't. And I always sort of figured, oh, if I could focus if I really wanted to. And the reason I can't is because I just don't want to. But that was the first time where there were things I really wanted to focus on, that. And I started playing music a few years before then. So focusing on music definitely as well. And so, yeah, when I started realizing that I couldn't focus on things even if I really wanted to, then I realized that this wasn't something that I could control. There was something going on. And I sort of, my dad has ADHD, and so I sort of always knew that was a thing. And so, yeah, I would say I was 15 when I first formally got diagnosed. Yeah, it's really nice to have an explanation for that kind of stuff, you know.
They jump you right into Ritalin right off the bat. That's what they do. We must be on a little delay.
I think I took. Yeah. Let me see. Oh, sorry. They put me on. Well, they didn't put me on anything. Like, I don't want to sound like I was being forced to do anything, you know. But the first thing first off, it was a really long process to get diagnosed. For me, for a lot of people, it was much quicker. But I think when it comes to the types of medications that are often prescribed to people with ADHD, if they were prescribing it to, at least at, you know, would have been 2009, they were being very cautious about who they were giving it to, because it started to become well known that these were often abused by people who had no reason to take them. They were just trying to get high off of them, frankly.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a very long process. And so when I decided that, like, the med route was I wanted to go on that route, go down that route, go on that route, take that route. It was after a lot of deliberation. So I wasn't put on anything. I was like, they didn't just give me something.
Yeah.
But it was Adderall. And it was it affected me very different then than it does now. I still take Adderall. I have taken other things in between then and now. But it affected me very differently then than it does now. And it's also, in my experience, I'm always very cautious when I talk about meds. Like, I'm not a healthcare professional, so talk to your doctor, but I can speak to my own experience. Those meds are tools and you have to sort of learn to use those tools. It's not like you just take them and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm all better. it's you sort of oh my gosh, there's me. That's me. That was
Your
actually I
guitar
was
days.
15 there, so yeah, I still have that guitar. It's hanging up on the wall right there.
Oh, that's sweet.
That was actually I got diagnosed about 2 months after that photo, or I got medicated 2 months after that photo was taken.
Okay.
But yeah, so like learning that when I was 15 and got medicated for the first time, it was like the beginning of a long journey of learning how to use these medications, learning that like it's not just the thing you take and it fixes you, not necessarily that there's anything to fix, but you have to make sure to eat. In my case, like it made me not eat if I wasn't, like I would have to notice that I was hungry. And but now after all these years, like I don't think about it. I just I just take my meds and that's that.
That's
But
the
yeah,
same with me.
meds
I was about
are
the
an
same
interesting
age.
thing.
I'm going to refresh real quick. Hang tight real quick. I think we're on like a 5-second delay. I think you and I. Hang on real quick.
Oh, really? Here, I'm going to jump close to my router real quick. Well, pow! With my less interesting background.
Okay, let's see. I think that might be a little better. Yeah, I think I was on like a 5 or 6 second delay, so it was fun. So I was about the same
cool.
when they first kind of really discovered with me, about like 15, 16, I think I was, and they threw me right on Ritalin, and it was weird. It was a weird thing. I was on it for a couple of years, but I didn't like it. And I stopped, man. I stopped until probably about a year ago. And they started me back on Adderall about a year ago. They pretty much re-diagnosed me. So I got diagnosed with ADD when I was 15. And then about a year ago, they re-diagnosed me with ADHD about 3 months after I got diagnosed with bipolar. So it's kind of
odd. Yeah, it's a lot happens at once. It seems like sometimes when you're getting a diagnosis. But also, I hear that a lot from my followers and people who are asking me questions, that my people, I don't want to say my older followers, but my followers who are like above the age of 20, will often say, like, I got diagnosed first a long time ago. They diagnosed me with ADD, and now I just got diagnosed again, and they don't diagnose me with ADHD. So what's the deal with that? Which is a totally valid question. But basically, the whole thing is that we're learning about ADHD much faster than we ever have been, which is awesome. But something that comes with that is changing terminology to more accurate things. And so we used to understand ADD as being a behavioral disorder for a very long time. And then sort of starting in the 80s, we learned that it was actually a neurological thing. It wasn't just the way that somebody behaves, it's something going on in their brain. And then in the mid 2000s, sometimes in the 2000s, we started to realize that ADD and ADHD are not two separate things. They're different manifestations of something that is the same, this thing that's going on in our brain. So for some people, the condition of ADHD causes them to be hyperactive because in their pursuit of new stimulus and of new stuff to satisfy their constant craving for new stimulus, they might seem hyperactive, and they might be hyperactive because they're physically moving a lot to satisfy that craving. Whereas a lot of people don't exhibit any hyperactivity symptoms. They're still doing the same thing in their head. They're still constantly looking for new stimulus, but it just doesn't cause them to move physically around a lot. They'll just be sitting still going like, whoa, what's that over there? But like that kind of thing. So that's why some people got diagnosed with ADD a while ago and then ADHD now. They're technically the same thing. As of 2013, and the DSM-5 got published in May of 2013. It is now just called ADHD on a spectrum. One end of the ADHD spectrum is ADHD predominantly inattentive, and the other end is predominantly hyperactive, and the center is ADHD combined. So if you're ADHD predominantly hyperactive, that means you do exhibit a fair amount of hyperactivity symptoms such that you would be diagnosed predominantly hyperactive. If you're on the very other end of the spectrum, you don't really exhibit any hyperactivity symptoms. You sort of, but you're calm, but your brain is still going, and you exist on that spectrum if you have ADHD. And so like if you were in the dead center, you would be called ADHD combined. So everybody sort of has a mixture of those two things.
That was a lot like with mine too. Let me, which one did I grab? 1 second. So I pulled up a video. I want to see. Which one is this? Sorry, dude.
No worries.
I grabbed one of your videos. I gotta see. I think this is the not paying attention one. So I was able to grab a couple of your videos off of TikTok. A couple of ones that really hit me. Let's see if I can get this. There you go.
You know, ADHD isn't just some cute personality quirk. Sometimes it can get pretty dark. Sometimes it's someone you love dearly confiding in you and telling you something that they wouldn't tell anybody else. But you can't focus if you look at them in the eye. The only way you can focus is by scanning the environment around you while you listen to them. But what if they assume that you're not paying attention because you're not looking them in the eye? So you have to decide, should I do what I have to do to listen, even though it could hurt them because they might feel like I'm not? Or should I look them in the eye, even though it means I can't listen to them, so that they can feel loved and heard? And while you're making that decision, they finish talking. And you didn't hear a thing.
Dude, this happens to me all the time. Like, all the time. And I'm trying, like, I work in customer, or work with a lot of people, and all day, every day, and I don't want to be rude. And I try, like, if I'm cleaning or doing something with my hands and I'm busy and someone's talking to me, dude, I'm paying attention a lot of the times. But if I'm sitting down and I'm focusing, like on a computer, I'm doing a task where I have to focus and someone's talking to me, good luck. And sometimes I could get angry if they're like, keep on. And I totally get that. And there's another guy at work that I deal with that he's the same way. And we're almost kind of from the same mold in a way. But, and I do it. I feel like if I stop and I pay attention to this person, I listen to him, I'm thinking about every other thing in the world. And I'm not thinking about a word they're saying. And then by the time I really do start paying attention to them, I'm just like, oh shit, I missed what they just said. So
yeah, the worst is when. Well,
okay.
sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, it's the worst is when you're doing that, and you're like looking at somebody, and you're like, okay, here we go. All right, Erik, we're paying attention now, and they're talking, and you're like trying to pay attention, and you keep going in and out because like, oh, it's just so hard. And then finally you go, okay, here we go, and like you phase back in, and they finish, and you don't have anything to like, or they asked a question that you didn't hear, or something like that. It's like, because like sometimes you'll catch a couple words before your brain trails off, and then you'll come back and you have to fill in the gap. But it's always just the worst was right when you come back for a second, they stop talking.
Exactly.
But
almost they look at you like you're not even listening to them in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the analogy that I use to describe it is if you were driving and you had sort of a rambunctious toddler behind you, like in the backseat behind you, and they were screaming and they were throwing things and they were whatever, and they were just being loud and distracting. You need to sort of occupy the kids. So you go like you jingle some keys or like give them a Game Boy or something and go, here, play with this. Like I'm driving, I need to focus, but you have to give them something to do. And that will, they'll grab the Game Boy or the whatever, and they'll sit and they'll focus. And that way okay, that's taken care of. Now I can focus on the road. So if I'm in a situation in which I have to not do other things, like I can't fiddle with a thing, or I can't be looking off and observing other stuff, but I have to just be standing there, not doing anything, looking them in the eyes while attempting to listen.
Yeah.
It's like that toddler doesn't have anything to do. And so my ADHD brain is like, what are we doing? What's going on? And like, let's fidget with something. What's going on over there? And I'm like, yeah, it's quiet. And so it's something that, after really this whole TikTok thing has really made me accept these parts of myself. But now it's like, I sort of try to make it understood to the people in my life that like, if you're talking to me, I need to be able to be doing something else, like whatever, like maybe perhaps fidgeting something, perhaps doodling on a piece of paper. A lot of the times it's like if I'm sitting, I just went on a date the other day, and I was with this woman, and I asked if we could sit not facing each other, but sitting next to each other, facing in the same direction. Yeah. So that way I could sort of scan the environment while looking at her, because if I was facing her, then the whole time I'd be like, oh my gosh, she noticed I'm not looking, and she thinks I'm not paying attention, and I'm the worst person ever. And she was very nice, and she was like, yeah, sure, of course. But getting like the worst is you never want someone to think that you're not paying attention to them, because it's rude. But an ADHD person paying attention to something frequently looks like a not ADHD person who's not paying attention to something. So if you're talking to an ADHD person and they're sitting there and they're scribbling, or they're sitting there and they're twiddling a coin in their hands, or they're like looking over there and like, they probably are listening. They almost definitely are, because they've quieted that toddler. They're doing that other thing so that they can focus on you. So all those other things going on in their brain are like, okay, like I can put aside that stuff. I can quiet those other brains that are, searching for stuff in my head and listen to you. Whereas if they were doing the thing that would to them appear to be paying attention, like sitting there and looking them in the eyes, then all those other brains, all those are like constantly looking around for other things to do, but there isn't anything because you have to sit there and focus. And so my brain just goes nuts and it's really hard for me to pay attention. So it's sort of it's a really counterintuitive thing for a non-ADHD person to understand, that like if an ADHD person looks like they're not paying attention to you, they probably are. Oh, and if they look like they're paying attention to you, they probably are. Like let them fidget, let them draw, let them, that kind of stuff.
I agree, man. Totally. And it's just crazy the way it is. Sorry. And because I'll be the same way. It's like I said, if I'm busy or like if I'm like wiping something down and I'm doing something with my hands, I can listen. But if I stop and I think that's what was so hard for me in school. Like when I was going to high school, I did a little bit of college. I just did some online stuff, and it was a little bit easier when I did online college, I guess. But when I was in class, man, back in high school, I had trouble. I definitely had a lot of trouble focusing, paying attention, and that's when I really started like, okay, something ain't right, and that's when we started doing all the other good stuff, because there's a lot of different things about ADHD. I know. I think Catie, we're gonna bring her on a little bit. She had a video about people like faking it, or where you're not really faking it, but you think you are, but you're not. So explain that a little bit to me.
Well, so I remember, I really like that video of hers. So in Catie's video, she can explain it better than I can.
Yeah, we'll have her on a video. But we'll have her talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. She'll tell me how wrong I was, as she does all the time. It's like it's our working relationship. Oh, hey, that's my family. That was a couple days after my 21st birthday in Lone Pine. What state is Lone Pine in? It's where they shot all the Western movies. Anyways.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice, dude. Yeah, I found this on
super cool town.
Where I found this picture. I think it was in the internet. Random photo I found. I'm like, hey, look at this.
Probably Facebook somewhere.
Yeah, I bet you it was.
But this is an ADHD thing. I'm gonna take a second to remember what I was talking about. I got it. All right, cool. Yeah. I wasn't faking that. I legitimately had to kind of like roll back the tape. Like, what was I thinking? But so something that like I find a lot of like personal purpose in combating is that ADHD is thought of by a lot of people as being fake and being sort of a way of excusing poor behavior or laziness, which I mean, certainly it could be, but that doesn't mean that it's not real for a lot of people. And so therefore it's hard to talk about. It's hard for me to talk about, which is why I'm so grateful that all these people have started listening, and like they've done for me what I think they claim that I have done for them, which is like now I like accept myself and start understanding these things. But so part of having ADHD is feeling like if you were to bring it up, if you were to bring up to somebody, say, hey, I have ADHD, it's really hard for me to pay attention to something that's happening if I'm not doing something else to sort of quiet that other side of my brain.
Yeah.
For me, what the insecurity for me would be that they just think that I'm just not good, like I'm a failure at paying attention, like it's a moral failing, and rather than just be better, I have to make up excuses, and that's what that's what I'm putting that on myself. Like that's what I'm worried about. And so sort of gaining acceptance within our community, like the ADHD community and really the neurodivergent community in general, that these things are real. You can't control what other people think, but it's important for you to know that it's real. And so that was, I think I posted a response to her video on that.
Yeah.
Which is, there are of course ways of communicating to other people that this thing is real. That's kind of part of like what I do, I guess. But the most important person to accept that it's real is yourself. Because, like in my head, there's absolutely still a part of me that just thinks that all of this is like, made up or whatever. It's not. It's hundreds and hundreds of scientists from all around the world all have signed stuff saying this is verifiably real. but there's still like a cynical part of me, like a sort of perhaps a self-loathing part of me that is just assumes that I'm just, you know, lazy and I'm just not trying it hard enough, and that I'm, I don't know, all sorts of bad things, and I get really mad at myself for it.
Yeah.
And that makes it all worse. And so I think it is monumentally important for the person who has the thing, in this case, ADHD, because I feel like I have that, so I can speak to that, to understand that what is happening is real. Like it's a real thing, and other people are going to think what they're going to think. But like it is valid, it is real. And what you're going through is legitimate. And there are like millions of other people like you who totally get it.
Yeah.
So that's something, I mean, that has helped me an insane amount, is meeting all these people through TikTok and like the Discord that has been created around my TikTok and all that. Is just all these people like just going, oh my gosh, I don't have to explain myself to you. Like I don't have to explain why I just tangented off a tangent. Like you get it. It's cool. It's just an amazing feeling. But so anyways, on faking it, I'm sure Catie could probably speak more eloquently to how to convince other people that it's real, how to make them learn that it is real and all that. But my 2 cents on that is you know, make sure that you understand that it's real, because it is. I mean, it is. There's a paper that was signed a number of years ago, within the last 10 years, but a bunch of different teams of scientists from all over the world who were all doing independent research all came together and signed like this document, basically saying, okay, we are all officially saying that this is a real this is a real thing, because so many people just assume it's an excuse to get drugs or an excuse to be lazy and all that stuff. Yeah. And so they had to sort of make this thing saying like, hey, we're the foremost experts on all this. Like you can measure it. Like you can do an fMRI in your brain and measure it like it's a real thing. So it's that. I don't know. I could go on forever. So I'll toss it back, but that.
Let's see. I have another video I want to load up real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Take this one down. Here it is. All right. So this is another one that really got me. Let's see. I really mute myself for a minute.
ADHD tip. So I have a bunch of unrelated tasks to do. I keep bouncing back and forth between all of them, never actually getting anything done. So I'm assigning each task an amount of time with 10-minute breaks in between. I'm just going to go down the list. And if I finish the thing, I'm crossing it off. When I reach the bottom of the list, I'm taking a 30-minute break. And then I'm going to start over at the top of the list again till the things are done. And then I shall push off. And sitting well in order, smite the sounding furrows, for my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset in the baths of all the western stars until I die. It may be the gulfs will wash us down. It may be that we shall reach the happy isles and see the great Achilles, whom we knew.
So that's something for me that really helped. So now I have a notebook wherever it has all my whole schedule. That'll just show I write every day what I have to do. But I also, when the day comes and I know I only have so much time to do it, I'll break that to-do list up into times. And I'll spend each time on everyone, kind of like how you're suggesting. And it works so much because if I get on a task, sometimes I do a lot of video editing at times. And I'll be trying to video edit and I can't figure something out. And I'll end up getting really mad at myself. But I notice if I just move on to something else for a few minutes, I can normally just jump back to that a few minutes later and be fine and jump right back into it and figure it out. Is that something that you've ever dealt with, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So people with ADHD, a common symptom of ADHD is something called time blindness, which basically means that we are dirt poor at understanding periods of time. We might think like, oh, this will take me 5 minutes, but it's really actually a really big task that's going to take much longer than that. Or we might think of a task like that really will only take me a couple minutes, but I've made I'll be like, oh God, I can't do the dishes. It's going to take up the rest of my day, you know? And so for me, using timers and it provides sort of an objective thing of like, it forces me to acknowledge how much time is actually going to be spent on this thing. It helps immensely for time management because you're, now not hyper focusing on one small thing and then therefore not doing all these other things, or you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to stop doing this thing and then do this other thing and constantly reprioritizing and never actually finishing any of them. By making it the structure rigid and external, by deciding beforehand, okay, I'm going to do 20 minutes on this, then this, then this, then break, or I'm going to do this until it's done, and then I can move on to this. However, there are a number of ways that I do it depending on which tasks or what types of tasks they are. But it forces my brain to understand the reality that these things are only going to take up periods of time. Like they're not going to take up all this a massive amount of time, and they're also not going to take an infinitesimal. They're just going to take this much time because I've written it down and I've set a timer. So like doing the dishes is something that like always it's daunting to me. Because my brain just tells me like, if you do dishes, it's going to be the rest of your day. You're not going to be able to do anything else today. You're just going to be doing that, which is of course wrong. Well, I mean, depends on how bad the pile is. But it's likely not going to be the case. And so if I just say, okay, I'm going to do the dishes for 30 minutes, then it's just like, okay, if I did that 30 minutes from now, I'm not going to be doing dishes anymore. Perhaps they'll be done, perhaps they won't. But it forces my brain to acknowledge the reality that this thing is going to take an amount of time and eventually it'll be done. So externalizing that information, the timing of tasks and all that, helps me, helps my brain understand time objectively rather than in the time blind way the ADHD brain often does. And it also, ADHD people have what's called executive dysfunction. I mean, which is a really complicated, not very well understood thing. But basically, the executive functions of your brain are sort of like I've heard a couple analogies and thought of a couple myself, and I'll go with it's like the conductor of your brain, like the conductor of an orchestra. It's the thing that decides what's going to be doing what at a time. So your brain can do all sorts of things. It can do manual tasks, and it can do like mathematical tasks, and it can do emotional stuff. Like it can do a bunch of different crazy stuff. The executive dysfunction decides like, okay, what should be focused on at any given time? Yeah. What are my priorities? Like, if you're really angry and you want to punch someone in the face, it's the part of you that goes, okay, we're not going to let the angry part of the brain deal with this. We're going to let the rational part of the brain deal with this, which is another reason ADHD people are not very good with impulse control frequently. But by externalizing, so the fact that our executive functions are dysfunctional causes us to constantly be reassembling our priorities. So if we have 5 things to do today, like I got to do the dishes, I got to do laundry, I got to go to the bank. Like if I start doing dishes, I'll go, wait a minute, it'd be more efficient if I put my laundry in and then did my dishes while the dishes were in the laundry. So then I'll go pick up all my laundry, and then I'll think, well, wait a minute, what if I did it? But then if I went to the store, that would take about exactly the amount of time that would take my laundry machine to run. So basically, you just spin off like that. Like you're just constantly reassembling the tasks in different ways. And so by making that list, it sort of forces me to accept like, hey, this might not be the perfect, most efficient, like optimal way of doing it, but it is the way that I'm going to do it. And so it just puts on paper or on whiteboard in my case, like this is what's going to happen. And so you don't have to think about the order of tasks as you're completing them. You're just running sequence. So it helps me a lot in that way too. I learned that from working in kitchens for like 10 years of doing all your thinking at once, like doing it all your thinking first, making the list, and then that's no more thinking. Like you just run the sequence, like you've already decided. But that has helped me monumentally over the years. However, it is a difficult habit to form, but once it's formed, it's powerful.
Yeah, before we bring Catie on real quick, you did mention whiteboard just a second ago. Tell us real quick about your whiteboard, because that is something that we had a little calendar whiteboard in my house, and I took over after I saw yours. I'm like, okay, I got to do this. But one thing that you said that I immediately started thinking of after you said it was take a picture. Because that's one thing is when you erase it, you got to make sure you have that photo because you're going to forget everything. But tell me about your whiteboard, and then we're gonna bring Catie on real quick here in a second.
Well, first off, I gotta point out, I noticed you said whiteboard singular. I have plenty of whiteboards. I have one sitting next to me right now. This is my mobile whiteboard. I made a little thing out of duct tape so I can. There it is. So I got my mobile whiteboard here.
There you go.
I have another whiteboard that might be difficult to see, but it's right there. So that's for if I'm moving about the apartment. It's like on the wall, so I can stop really quick, jot it down.
Oh, nice.
And there it is.
Yeah.
Then I have my most used whiteboard is directly to the right of my desk because I'm right-handed, so it's on this wall. So that way, when I'm doing stuff at my desk and I think of something, I can just immediately ba-ba-da-ba-da, and then go back. Then I have another one on my refrigerator and another one on my door. But anyways, I use whiteboards a lot.
No, it's awesome, man. You need to.
Yeah. Well, it serves a number of functions. So I tend to, I'll designate a section of the whiteboard that is what I call the brain dump, which anything can go there. Anything can go there. Like random thoughts about a painting you want to do, or like you thought of a cool logo for a business that you want to create 10 years from now. Jot it on the board in the brain dump section. And then the other section is the organized version of that. So like if I have a bunch of tasks to do in the day, I'll just, if I try to organize them while writing them down, I'll constantly be going, no, that one should be more prioritized again and all that, because it's, again, executive dysfunction.
Yeah.
So I'll sort of set organization aside for a moment. I'll just go, I'm deliberately not going to write this in an organized way. I'm just going to blast everything that I'm thinking on the thing. Oh, I have to go to the bank. Oh, I should clear off my desk. Oh, I got to vacuum the thing. Oh, I got to make sure to call whatever. Just in any order that they come up, just, and then once they're there, then you can kind of go through them and go like, okay, that one, and then write them down. The contemporary composer, John Cage, who wrote this piece called 433. 433. It's 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. He's a fascinating dude. But he has this list of 10 rules for students and teachers. And one of them is do not attempt to create and analyze at the same time. They are separate processes. And so it's sort of like that, where when my brain is in a prospecting mode, when it's in an ideas mode, when it's in a just thinking of things mode.
You had a video, trying to organize video at one point that I loved. That you talked about.
Well, trying to organize those things is a futile effort. It's just not going to happen. And so, so the whiteboard brain dump section is sort of a way of embracing that in a way, and also I think for me personally, and I think for other people too, they've told me, there's if you know that you have ADHD, that can compound some of the symptoms because you know that you're going to probably forget the thing that you just thought of. And that makes you want to do it right now, because if I don't do it right now, I'm going to forget. And so the whiteboard is sort of a way of quieting that. If I think of a thing that I really want to do, oh my gosh, I can write it down, and then I don't have to worry about doing it right now or forgetting it because it's written down. So it's a way of externalizing those things so that my brain doesn't have to constantly be worried about, am I going to forget that exciting thing that I thought of, 10 minutes ago, or like I'm doing a chore, but I have the energy to do this other thing right now, and I'm going to forget it if I don't do it. Well, writing it down on the whiteboard is, key. Yep. And the reason I use whiteboards and not notebooks is because you can lose a notebook, but whiteboards are just on the wall.
Yeah, I love the idea, because I have my notebook. The one I have is one of those huge like college rule or whatever ones. But I actually started using whiteboards after that. I love it. So I want to go back. I'm gonna put this up real quick because we're getting ready to bring Catie on too. But I want to go back to the day you downloaded TikTok. Did you ever think you were gonna have 100,000 followers?
Gosh, no.
Like, what were you thinking? Were you thinking like, I went through a couple ADHD videos, a couple maybe just goofy videos? Because you're a funny dude, man. I mean, you're a funny guy just to begin with. And I think maybe that's why I may have connected with you through your videos, is because you're a funny guy and I was relatable with that. And so, did you plan on this? I mean, did you think it was going to go this way?
Absolutely not. No. So I'm a cook. I have been for 8 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my restaurant closed when COVID really hit. And so for like 2 months, I was just like I had nothing to know no reason to leave the house, no reason to do anything. And so I downloaded TikTok just because I don't know, I had so much time on my hands. The first 4 videos I made or something like that. Well, first off, I didn't post anything on it for a long time. I just watched all the stuff and I was like, wow, like people are really creative on this. There's also a lot of stuff that I don't care for, and there's all the stuff that I really do care for, but like it's this whole universe. And I was just like, wow, this is really vast. And then I used to make a lot of videos and stuff when I was like a kid, when I was like 8, 9, and 10. And so I was like, why don't I do that anymore? I had this magic smartphone thing in my hand. Why should I make a thing? And so my first 4 videos or so are just anything that came to mind. Like, just, I don't know.
Yeah.
One of them is me like walking funny in my underwear with a harmonica shoved in my mouth because it makes a funny noise. One of them was me. I like to think of funny sounding sentences sometimes. And just say them. So I was like, I said the sentence, man, that's an awful lot of lawful falafel waffles in one of them. And then at some point, I was having a really bad like ADHD day where I was trying to do things that I wanted to do, not chores stuff, but like that I wanted to do. And I kept, like, by the time I walked to the side of the room where I wanted to get the pen to write the thing down, I will have thought of something else. And I will turn around and I'll go to the other side of the room. And by the time I get the guitar pick to start playing, I'll have thought of something else. And so I was just, and if I was trying to do a chore, I would be like, oh, I should do the dishes, but there were dishes in my room, so I should take those out. But those dishes kind of have trash on them, so I should put those in the trash and then take it out. And it was just this infinite digression. I was so mad at myself. Frankly, like I was angry. I was furious. And I thought, this is something I'd like to describe. Like, this is something that I've spent a lot of time in my life trying to describe to the people around me, like that I want to do the things. I like the chores. I want to do the chores. I'm not avoiding doing them. I'm trying to do them, but I can't get my brain to run the sequence.
To help you.
So anyways,
exactly.
I made that first video about how you're never doing the thing that you intended to do. You're always doing the thing that you thought of while you were trying to do the thing that you intended to do.
Yeah.
And so you just digress until you're too far down the line to remember what you were doing in the first place. And anyways, that video blew up, and it's the strangest feeling, man, I'll tell you. So no, I never anticipated any of this, but I remember I posted it and then checked my phone 3 hours later, and it was getting like 2,000 views a minute, and it was just like, whoa! And then at that point, people were listening to me, and so I thought, okay, how can I help these people? And
exactly.
I thought I'd talk about ADHD because I can.
And that's one thing you were passionate about. You can tell. So let's bring your co-host or your friend Catie on board. That's going to be on this podcast with you. Let's bring her on. Hey, Catie. Let's see. There's
Catie. Let's do it.
Like, where's she at? How you
Catie!
doing? Everybody, welcome Catie to the show. So, did you guys meet on TikTok? Is that how you guys kind of met, or?
Yeah. Who do you remember who messaged you first? Because I don't.
I had the biggest friend crush in the world on you, so I'm sure it was me. Just I thought your videos were better than mine. I still think your videos are better than mine. And so I was just like, wow, if I could like at all be involved with this person, maybe her magic will rub off on me or something like that. And so I think I messaged you first. But very quickly the idea of a collaboration came up, and then you and I would start talking, trying to think of a collaboration, and so then we just started talking.
Yeah. I mean, that's really how it happened. That's how the whole podcast happened, was because we just kept calling each other going like, okay, we're going to figure out a video collab. We're going to make one video. And then we would talk for like 3.5 hours. And then one day on a live, I mentioned this. I said, like, me and HeyGude, like, we talk on the phone sometimes, and like, we'll talk for 2 and 3 hours, and like the whole channel just became people being like, I would give anything to listen to those conversations. How can we come to you? Can we be in your part? And so I was like, hey, maybe we should have a podcast. And so now here we are. So
So is it gonna be like a YouTube thing as well? I heard you guys were talking about one, or how are you guys gonna?
Erik, would you like to explain the concept behind our pod tube?
The pod tube. Yeah, sure. Well, so this idea came about. I think we were video Zooming, Skyping, sponsorship pending. No, I'm kidding. But at the time, and so we just figured like, oh, we could just start recording like these conversations that people like say they want to hear. And so I think in recording a Zoom meeting, there is video of it. And so for me, it was just sort of like, well, of course there would be video because the video already exists. Like if we were doing like a podcast setup with like the mics and all that stuff, adding a video component to that would be the whole thing. But in this case, like we have the video right in front of us. Why wouldn't we just also just put that up too? So if I gesture with my hands or like do a cool skateboard trick or something, you can see it. I'm practicing. So
really
I don't know.
good.
And then at that point, it's thanks, Catie. So at that point, it was just, you know, the fact that there's a visual component to it just offers for more opportunity. You can do visual things that you can't do if you didn't have that. So, and also hosting things on YouTube, you can just have a YouTube account and do it rather than, you know, go through whatever one has to go through to get it posted on Apple Podcasts or something. And the word PodTube is hilarious.
Oh, I love it.
That's Catie dressed like a minion, it looks like. Is that...
Yeah, you can send over some quick videos or pictures. I like these.
I tried to send over a sampling of fun and interesting ones, but that was just one where I was feeling my outfit that day. Erik.
I love it. So one thing I want to bring up, I have both of you guys on. And,
I'm sorry, Catie. I'm sorry.
That's funny. You guys both deal with ADHD videos. Catie, I just recently started watching some of yours. I love them. I want to start digging back a little further into yours too. But people always talk about ADHD and kind of being a superpower, or kind of being like I don't want to say like a third eye or whatever, but just kind of be more in tune with yourself. Do you guys believe that at all? Like with ADHD, that we're more in tune with what's going on?
I have really mixed emotions about ADHD as my superpower. Because like, I'm gonna nerd out for a second, but like I love comics, and I really like the X-Men. And I think that for a lot of people, having the ability to be, you know, infinitely creative, you know, hyper focus, hyper fixation, like that kind of thing, I think it is definitely a cool superpower. But I also think for a lot of people, depending on the severity of their ADHD, it's the kind of superpower like Rogue has, where it's incredibly isolating and you feel incredibly alone. And for much of your life, you have no idea how to interact with the world, how to interact with other people, how to be your best self, because you are dealing with this superpower that can really mess up your life. And so like I definitely respect people who put that positive spin on it and who, you know, use that positive spin to get them through their day. But whenever I hear it, I just think about Rogue, I guess is where I was going with that.
Erik, what about you?
Yeah, I think any mental disposition, for putting aside the concept of a disorder for now, any mental disposition has its perks and its liabilities, and so when it comes to a neurological disorder, as we call it, I'll stick to specifically ADHD because I do not want to speak for anybody who has neurodivergencies that I don't, because I'm not qualified or capable of doing it. But so specifically for ADHD, you know, it has its benefits and it has its deficits, and you can also have more severe and less severe cases. And there's also just the fact that, you know, there's sort of environmental luck. Like perhaps you're born into a circumstance in which the fact that you have ADHD is something that you can manage well, not easily, but you can feasibly manage.
Yeah.
And perhaps you're born into a situation in which you can't. Then you have just the situation that you end up having to be, like, if you have to have a certain job for whatever reason, for which ADHD is extremely detrimental, that's a real struggle. That's a real struggle. Oh, hey, I was currently just drawing an eye because I was going to put it here and it would be my third eye. Funny. So I was literally like just now drawing an eye. That's so funny.
That is funny. We're talking about ADHD is your superpower.
Wow. Look at that. And I was thinking like, wild. Wow, that picture. But so anyways, so ADHD is a serious struggle for a lot of people. And so to call it a superpower I suppose is offensive to those people. I've heard from them personally. But I think it has its benefits and it has its deficits, and it entirely depends on which of the immense amount of possible circumstances the person with ADHD could be in. So like for me, if I'm in a situation in which prospecting ideas quickly is what's necessary, just thinking of a vast quantity of ideas for how to approach a problem or something, then sure, it's like a superpower in that moment, because I'm already thinking that quickly and I've already attacked this from a million different angles, so I can just start talking and just do the thing.
Yeah.
But if I'm in a situation where I have to pick the best of those ideas, I sort of freeze up and I panic and I get really insecure and I get really mad at myself. I mean, ADHD is very commonly a jumping off point for other mental disorders, because it's just has well, I won't get into that, but when I get depressed, it often starts with my ADHD.
Yeah. No,
Sorry.
Mine too. My depression always has started with my ADHD. I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. So superpower sometimes, massive, terrifying liability at other times. But yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings on that too. But I would say that briefly sums it up. But I know that was not brief. So thanks for coming.
No, that's all good. Now I don't know if you guys have done a lot of stuff. Maybe
Catie says it all the time, and that's the first time I've ever said it. So.
Oh. Totally, man. No, that's awesome. But I know if you guys haven't dealt with anything with like in children at all, myself, like I said, I noticed early on, like 14, 15, but I have a 6-year-old now that I totally I could see just symptoms like in him. But if you guys have maybe dealt that with any younger kids like that or anything?
I mean, I don't have any kids.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I do is I am a teaching artist.
Okay.
And so I go into classrooms, well, I did before the pandemic, but I teach a lot of theater for, just kind of broad overview theater for younger kids. And then I teach a lot of Shakespeare for older kids, because that's what I'm an expert on. And so for me, I mean, I don't necessarily know if I can look at a group of kids and be like that one, and that one. But what I can say about it is that I think I'm so happy that I get to be a teacher now, because there is such a better understanding of neurodivergencies, and there's such a better understanding of, how kids and just childhood development and all of that stuff. And so as somebody who comes into the classroom and goes Romeo and Juliet for, half an hour and then leaves and never sees those kids again, even having the teachers take the time to say, hey, just so you know, I have 3 kids, I have 3 autistic kids, and I've got, 4 kids with ADHD or something like that. That's so helpful, because then you start to realize that, I always see a little bit of myself in those people. You know what I mean? That's probably a bad answer. I don't know.
No, it's really good. I mean, honestly, that's why I kind of related to Erik too on his videos. I saw myself in his videos. I saw myself struggling with the same things he was struggling with, and I was able to relate to it. But Erik, you said you were 15, 16 when you first got diagnosed, but I'm sure earlier on you were kind of really fidgeting a little bit or noticing a little bit of things. But for young kids, how do you feel about them developing this early and stuff, and noticing it early, or even treating it early?
Mm-hmm. Well, I also don't have kids.
Youngins, no.
I think no. No, I also don't have kids, so I can't speak from the experience of raising kids. But
yeah,
like most people, I have been one, and so I suppose there were things that well, first off, I think that the term attention deficit disorder, I wouldn't say it's offensive to me, but it's a misnomer, because it's not, in my understanding, it's not a deficit of attention. There's a lot of attention to be had in the mind of an ADHD person's brain. It's just they can't control where it goes all the time. And so when I was a kid, I was never not focused. I was just focused on sequential things, this, then that, then this, then that, then this, then that. And so I think understanding, until there were certain things that I would hyper focus on, as it's commonly called, that in my experience, like in my experience of hyper focus, it's usually when there's a task that to me is intricate enough or complicated enough, which is not to say like, building a watch, but just something that I find interesting enough that I can still jump around with my focus, but within the confines of that task or subject. So when I was a kid, and I would, hammer pieces of wood together or build things out of, I like to take tin foil and then put them in a wood vise and crush it into like a piece of metal, and then I could like bend it into different shapes. But that I would do for hours and hours and hours, just because in my head there were so many possibilities. I could keep bouncing around and being all over the place, but it was all within the confines of this one thing. So I guess, I mean, when talking about children with ADHD and how to go about that, it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, for you or them or anybody to decide what they're going to focus on. That's just going to take, practice and work, and it's going to be that's going to be a whole thing. But there is almost certainly going to be something or a couple things that the child can't help but focus on, something that they take and they just, when they do it, that's just the only thing that's happening for them. It's just their whole world. I would say, I guess, pay attention to that and try to facilitate that, but don't like put it on, but just sort of create space for that. But again, I don't have kids, and I'm not a teacher, so all of this is just conjecture. But I do remember being a kid and what it was like, and it was never that I didn't. Yeah.
I think we're back on our delay again.
Yeah, I hope.
Oh, all right. Well, let me refresh one more time. Just I think we're on that delay. Let me check. Read.
Cool.
Show.
I'm back.
Oh, damn it.
The last thing we'll talk about before we end tonight is definitely I was talking to you guys a little bit, and this is a music podcast. Once a month we're going to trade off that and have other topics. What do you think music factors into ADHD in a way?
Oh man. I mean,
Catie, do you want to go for it?
I think you should go for it. You're far more qualified than me.
All right. Yeah. Well, so I don't know. I'm so aware that I could just end up talking for the next hour. So I'm trying to think, I really what I want to say.
Do you want me to give my short answer first?
Sure. Go for it. And I'll
Third eyes there now.
So I mean, for me,
I got the third eye going here.
Oh my gosh. So like for me, music has always been a part of my life. I was always learning an instrument or forgetting to practice an instrument, and going through phases of like, oh, I guess I'm gonna learn the cello, or oh, I guess I'm gonna learn the concertina. And some of them stuck, and some of them didn't. But I think that but music has always been a constant, and I think part of it is because it is really something that engages your whole brain. You're reading the music, you're interpreting the music, you are playing the music with your body. And so for an ADHD brain, there's this glorious sort of like unification of body and mind that a lot of times you don't get. I feel like a lot of ADHD people live in their head a lot more. And so being able to have an outlet and have the opportunity to express your emotion, in a piece of music or whatever, like I think that is a really cool, really important thing to have. And music can say so much, and music can make you feel, so much that, you know, there's literally been times in my life where I'm like, I don't know how to express what I'm feeling, but I can play you this sonata, right? That like in my head, like it is saying the things that I can't. Um, and I think that that's part of it. I think it's just how engaging it is and how all encompassing it is. Um, you know, there's also a lot of it. You know, like
Yeah.
there's never you were never going to run out of music to listen to. And for ADHD, which craves newness and craves you know, that kind of thing, like it, yeah, I don't know where I'm at with it.
Who's your go-to that you listen to? Like if you're just having kind of your ADHD day, who's your listener or your artist?
Oh man. I mean, it kind of depends on the day.
Yeah.
I'm one of the things that Eric and I have kind of bonded over is the fact that we're both really into classical music, but you can't ever say that you really like classical music without sounding pretentious. But I love classical music. I love Percy Grainger. I love, you know, like Beethoven because I'm basic.
Yeah.
But you know, honestly, like the serotonin, you know, if I'm like, oh, I'm really bummed out or whatever, and I need serotonin, I listen to the Longest Johns. They're a sea shanty band, which is so embarrassing. But I love sea shanties. Like sea shanties are like my favorite type of music. Like there's just something about like the harmonization and the history behind it and like the structure, like the actual like structure of how those songs are written to be,
Yeah.
you know, like there's just so much to it that just like makes my like nerd heart happy. So that's like the Longest Johns are something that I listen to a lot.
That's awesome. So Eric, what about you, man?
Do you love me some superlatives?
What
What do I listen to
Well, I
in,
mean,
in an ADHD way, or
how do you think music plays in ADHD? I mean, or for you? I mean, how does it play for you? Because I know you play.
yeah. So I think uh, music. So music is meant to be enjoyed. Music is meant to just generally make the world a better place to be in, like on its fundamental corny level.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's for. It serves no other function than that, just to be enjoyed. And so when I play music, my goal is always to either enjoy it myself or provide enjoyment for somebody else. And so I studied classical music for a couple of years. I went to a boarding school where we all had majors. And you know, we lived on campus and we all had, you know, there were a lot of musicians there. And I was a classical guitarist. So I had the long nails and I sat like this and I would go blah, 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 blah. And that was after playing you know, Battle of the Bands at my high school and like metal music. I still love metal. But that and so suddenly my understanding of music was if you delay your own enjoyment of it, you will enjoy it much more later. And so I don't know if you've ever heard the expression "kill your darlings," but music at that time for me was sort of, if you enjoy playing something, don't play it. Play the things you don't like playing and get better at them. Okay. Do the things that you're not good at. So it was never the point in like in my head was I should only be playing things that I'm not very good at. And it sort of rid the joy from me as a performer. I mean, I loved and still absolutely do love classical music. But anyways, the frustration of sitting in a practice room, trying to delay my gratification of this thing that I love to do, playing guitar, trying to push through this practice session so that I could play this piece that I love and later get more satisfaction, like this delayed gratification thing. But I was incapable of doing it because just sitting there in a quiet room with exactly one thing happening, and just my job was to just do that for hours and hours and hours. I mean, it was borderline impossible. If I wasn't medicated, I would have, I don't know what would have happened. But so anyways, that all only really has to do with me, and now I'm rambling, but basically, music can be non-linguistic, and I think a big trap of humanity is that we get caught up in language, and we become obsessed with our ability to use language, especially those in the neurodivergent community. So expression through music, you don't have to worry about if you know the word for that, or if you are describing it in a way that vibes with the other. You can just, when I go to the piano to express something, no matter, like, my goal is to express, and so I just play anything. Sometimes I just fucking bang on the. I probably shouldn't swear.
You're all good,
I just bang on the keys. Cool. But anyways, I think for an ADHD person, I think the non-linguistic element of it, and the fact that it's infinite, that an infinite amount of things can be played, and there's nobody could tell you you're wrong. I think it's a very useful thing for an ADHD person to be involved with. It's just, in my case, I swung very far into the musical place where ADHD is a massive liability.
Oh, for sure.
And so I've spent the last 8 years of my life sort of decompressing from that, and I'm just now starting to get back to the point in music where I play it just because I enjoy it. But it's still quite hard for me. But either way, I would recommend any ADHD person playing music of any kind.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about buying that instrument, totally.
Okay.
Unless you can't afford it, don't buy things you can't afford.
So what's your go-to for if you're just having maybe it's a random day, just a kind of a rough day, you just want to kind of get out, get some good music going? What do you put in?
I don't know. Well, it depends on if I'm walking somewhere, if I'm going somewhere. I'll listen to classical music, a lot of Wagner these days, a lot of Mozart these days. What else? A lot of Mahler these days. Then that's what I'm sort of looking for a soundtrack. Catie, you don't like Mahler? Come on, you don't like Mahler? No, whatever. I just remembered I don't care.
You made a 433 reference earlier. Come at me.
Yeah, I did. I totally did. So if I'm looking for a soundtrack to looking around in the world, I'll listen to classical music of some kind. Then if I'm doing something, if I'm doing dishes or cleaning a room, I really like death metal,
nice.
Metal. There's a band, the Rings of Saturn, I really like. Black Dahlia Murder, I really like. But just high octane, just absolute. Because for that, there's just a massive quantity of information coming at you.
Do you find that kind of just making you get stuff done? Because I could see with the death metal, man, especially having ADHD, just kind of really pumping me up too.
Yeah, it's impossible to work slowly and lazily when there's just and happening. And it also, it's sort of. There's so much information coming out of death metal, so many things going on, double bass happening, and just
it's in your face.
That it provides it provides satiation for that, that rambunctious toddler in the back seat trying to distract you. It's so much that it quiets all that the stuff seeking extra stimulus, so that I can then go, oh, cool, now I can do dishes. So that a lot. I also listen to some jazz and some classical guitar still. But yeah, Rings of Saturn, definitely check it out.
All right. So Catie, before we wrap up, go ahead and tell us where you can find your podcast, where we can find you guys at, and let us know real quick.
Yeah, so we're gonna be starting it on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Catie ADHD. We're also we're working on the Spotify and the Google and the Apple, but we're going to start off on our YouTube channel and then ultimately migrate to its own, so we can just have our own lives outside of it. But yeah, no, we're really excited. Did I forget to say anything, Erik? I always forget I forgot something, but I don't.
I did share the
totally.
link. Find the link in the chat too.
Yeah, totally. So we're going to start initially, we're going to start posting on Catie's YouTube because it has followers, and that's a thing that is good.
People to watch.
But people, yes, exactly. And then, but then hopefully as it gets momentum, if it gains momentum, which hopefully it will, we're going to start a separate YouTube thing that is going to be for the things that we do together. That way we can both still have our own YouTubes and then this thing for both of us. So
we got to start with a family.
Check it out on Catie's. Yeah, exactly. So it's youtube.com/Catie ADHD, CATIE ADHD. Also, thank you, Aaron, for posting all those the Patreon links and whatnot
all the
in
links
the chat. But if you want to,
and I'll have them all in
yeah,
the
if
show
you want
notes
to
as
support
well
us,
too.
Patreon.com/HeyGude would be awesome. And then Catie, your Patreon is patreon.com/Catie ADHD, right?
That's
Is that
correct.
correct?
Yeah.
They're all out there. All right, well, Eric, hang on a second.
Awesome.
I got
It's
something,
just
a quick segment with you, but
yeah.
Catie, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and hanging out with us. It's really been a pleasure. Can't wait to watch more of your videos and see what you guys are going to do together, because
Yeah. Thank you so
I
much for
saw that
having
first
me.
duet you guys did, and that was awesome. I'm like, these guys are going to be amazing together.
I'm really excited. I was like, we've said for a really long time, like, all this stuff going on with TikTok not being canceled or not, but like meeting Erik has been one of the best things. So I'm really happy. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and hopefully we talk soon.
You're so cool, Catie.
All right, Catie, take care.
Bye, Catie. I think I'm looking at you in the frame. Cool.
That's funny. All right, let me take this
Isn't
out.
she wonderful?
So we do a segment every week that I call the hot seat. So I'm going to do that with you real quick. 60 seconds I'm going to put on the clock. Oh, not really a clock, but a little sound thing. And let's see how far we can get through them.
It looks just normal to me. Okay, let's do it.
All right, your go-to candy snack.
Oh, Reese's Cups, definitely. My gosh, ever since I was like 2, absolutely.
First cassette tape you ever owned?
I never owned a cassette. I'm a little too young for that. My first CD was Britney Spears.
Nice.
Whatever Britney Spears CD had the song "Toxic" on it.
Okay, nice. Your first concert you ever went to, man?
Avenged Sevenfold in Detroit.
Ooh,
I was 12.
Your biggest pet peeve?
Loud chewing.
Ooh, that's a good one. What was your first job?
I was a busboy at a restaurant.
All right. That was my first job too.
Yeah, dude, it's fun.
Your favorite car you ever owned?
I've only owned one. It was a 2006 Mazda 6, and it was great. And she got towed, and I didn't find out in time, so I couldn't afford to get her back, and so it's gone. But it was a 2006 Mazda 6. That was great.
And and you got through 6 questions. A 2006 Mazda 6 and 6 questions.
Well, there you go.
That's 3 sixes. That's not good.
Oh gosh. It's happening. It's all happening right now.
Oh man! And the very next question: your favorite Halloween costume you ever wore?
I was Andy Dufresne one year, and so I had from the Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
So I was at boarding school at the time, and our uniforms were very similar to the Shawshank uniforms.
Oh my god, that's hilarious!
I was also really into polishing rocks at the time, so I carried around my polished rocks, and it was great. But yeah, Andy Dufresne.
So you've been a cook. What's the favorite meal that you prepare for a guest? So if you're gonna have company, or say you just said you're on a date, say you're gonna bring that date back home, you're gonna cook your most favorite meal for at home. What are you cooking, man?
Oh man, I think spaghetti bolognese, maybe.
Okay.
My grandfather has this amazing bolognese recipe that's very simple, but like just for some reason, like his tact with it. So he's passed it on to me. So maybe spaghetti bolognese, or maybe spaghetti carbonara. That too.
Ooh, that sounds
if she's vegetarian, cacio e pepe.
Oh, I didn't think about that. All right. And then and I know that's on your bucket list. That's something that you really want to do.
Oh man, I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to put an object into orbit around Earth. Ooh. That would be amazing. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how to do it, but you need a lot of money. That's the long and short of it is you need a lot of money. But that would be really awesome.
You invent like a Tesla or something like that.
Exactly right. And then launch it into orbit. Like.
So before I let you go, I'm gonna play one last video, and this is my most favorite video you've ever done. I'm going to play this real quick, and I just want to talk about this for a couple minutes before we sign off for the night.
Sure.
Play this video.
At the end of this video, I'm going to ask you to do something that is very difficult. Don't worry, you don't have to move. For now, I want you to picture that your 5-year-old self is standing right in front of you, and that they feel exactly how you feel right now, and they're going through exactly what you're going through right now. How do they look? What look on their face do they have? What does their hair look like? What are they wearing? What would you say to them? How would you feel towards them? Would you hug them? Would you lift them up in the air? Would you high-five them? Would you buy them ice cream and tell them it's all going to be okay because you know it will? Here's the ask. I'm asking you to aspire to treat yourself with the same love and compassion that you would treat that kid. Because that's still you and it always will be. Good luck.
So dude, that right there, like when I saw that video, like I lost it because you talk about like, imagine a 5-year-old kid, but I have a 6-year-old son, and like I saw my son who looks just like me when you were saying that in front of me, and I'm like, huh, and it just resonated with me, dude. So bounce off that a little bit. What were you thinking when you made this video? I mean, what was the intent behind this video?
Well, I think one of the grander questions in my life, one of the more massive questions in my life that just is in there, and perhaps for other people as well, is why is it that I can so easily afford compassion and forgiveness and love to other people? And why is it that I'm so certain that other people are deserving and worthy of happiness and love? But I'm constantly withholding that from myself. Why is it that, you, Aaron, like, if you were to ask me for advice on a subject, perhaps I would have good advice, perhaps I wouldn't. But my answer would be within the realm of the certainty that I have that you, Aaron, are deserving of love and happiness, and you're, a person who brings joy to other people. Like, that is so fundamentally true to me. And I don't mean to sound like that's some quality I should be venerated for. I think that's a pretty inherent human empathetic trait. Just other people deserve to be safe and happy and all that stuff. But as soon as I turn that towards myself, am I deserving of happiness? And am I worthy of love? And am I noble enough? Am I worthy? Suddenly I have to go through my entire history and pull out all the files of all the things that I've said and all the things that I've done. And eventually, and the answer is always, who knows? We'll see. So the jury is always out on whether or not I'm deserving of love and I'm deserving of happiness. Mm-hmm. But other people, it's beyond the shadow of a doubt. Of course they are. Of course they are. And so I noticed that if I look at old pictures of myself, the younger I get, the more certain I am that I am deserving of love. And so if I look at myself when I was 18, I remember what I was thinking at 18, and I feel the same sort of withholding about that 18-year-old as I do myself now. Sure of myself as a 5-year-old, who has muddy boots and dirt all over their hair as well. The one in the whole world find a friend. That's what so bad. That kid is deserving. I would never do anything to hurt that kid, ever. And that kid deserves to be safe and loved and happiness. And I would never, ever do to that kid some of the things that I do to myself, and some of the things that I say to myself, all the self-critical things that I scream at myself in my head constantly, for forgetting things and for being too ADHD and for not doing things as well as I would have liked. I would never speak to that kid that way. I would be furious if anyone did. But that's still me. That is me. The person sitting here now, these hands are his hands. This hair is his hair. That we are the same person. And so it's a big ask to ask a person to imagine that kid and recognize that is you. You are still that kid. You are still as worthy of love and happiness and compassion and forgiveness and grace as that kid is. Yeah. It's just at some time we forget that. I don't know when it happens, but at some point we forget that.
I definitely agree.
And so, yeah.
No, I agree. We do forget that along the way. And when I saw that video, I mean, it kind of made me a better dad in a way, just kind of like the things you said and just think of things. So thank you for that. And thank you for everything you've kind of taught me the last couple of months, man, because if I ever would downloaded TikTok and actually discovered one of your videos one day, I mean, who knows where I would have been, or I mean, I would have been probably struggling with some other things, because I mean, honestly, you have helped me with different techniques and different things to kind of deal with my daily life. So I appreciate you doing that, man. Because there's 100,000 other people just like me that you've kind of helping change their lives. So thank you for downloading that app and thank you for helping us. But that last video I played though, man, that's I mean, that right there, it was soulful, it was passionate, and it was talking about the truth. The truth of life is love everybody the way you want to be loved and the way the 5-year-old would want to love them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I mean, it's really been an unprecedented. It's unprecedented in my own life to be able to reach this many people. And there's sort of this weird question, you know, when I looked at my phone for the first time after posting that first video that got really popular.
Yeah.
There was sort of this moment where like all of a sudden I was on a soapbox in front of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
And like imagine if you just like opened your eyes and you were standing on a stage and thousands of people are looking at you and you just have a microphone in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you say?
Yeah.
Well, the first many things that you say are to yourself in your own head, which is, I'm unworthy of this. Why me? Why would any of these people care what I have to say? And you'll very quickly arrive at the reality, which is none of this is about me anymore. It's kind of ironic that having a bunch of followers makes you realize that it's not about you. But so the only thing I ever want to do with any of this really is to do things that help other people, either by educating them about something or making them feel less alone or making them laugh. Like, and I don't mean to sound like I'm trying to seem like this all, you know, amazing person. I'm of course I'm not. But just the fact that people have told me, people like you have told me that I've made their lives better. I will let you know if I ever have words to describe the feeling. It has been one of the great honors of my life. And it's also one of the strangest thing that has ever happened to me by far. Oh my gosh.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, man. People like us are definitely, we love it. I cannot wait to see what you and Catie are going to do together because I know it's just going to be magic. Just from watching you guys bounce back and forth on your videos and stuff. So it was awesome seeing you guys tonight work together and talk back and forth. So, but thanks for spending some time with me tonight, too. I know we ran way over, but this was a topic that we had to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My gosh, it's a pleasure. Anytime. I'm happy to come back. I mean, I do have like, you know, if I'm adrift at sea, perhaps I couldn't. But so anytime within reason.
I don't know. Next time you come back, we might let you play guitar though.
Oh gosh, give me a month's notice so I can grow out my nails and do all the stuff.
All right, Erik. Well, you have a great night and enjoy it, man. And try to enjoy the rest of this year if you can somehow. It's been a wild year.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you. You too. And stay safe, of course.
All right, man. You take care.
All right. Take care, bud.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. That was another amazing show. God, did I have fun on that one. So this is what, like I said, season 3 is going to be a little different. We might run over a little bit here and there, and we'll see. But I definitely want to bring new topics and new struggles to the show and show a little bit of positivity at the end. So next week, we're getting back to music. We got a good friend of mine coming on. I cannot wait till next week. We're going to have some talking, and this guy's going to play some good music, too. I'll see you guys next Tuesday night.